is an extract from something Ruskin wrote. It's long ago that he wrote this thing called Where Rivers Meet. It's a funny thing, but long before I arrive at a place, I can usually tell whether I'm going to like it or not. Thus, while I was still some 20 miles from the town of Pauri, I felt it was not going to be my sort of place, and sure enough it wasn't. On the other hand, while Nandaprayag was still out of sight, I knew I was going to like it, and I did. Perhaps it's something on the wind, emanations of an atmosphere that were carried to me well before I arrive at my destination. I can't really explain it. And no doubt, it's silly to be prejudiced in advance. But it happens that way, and I mention the fact for what it's worth. As for Nandaprayag, perhaps I'd been there in some previous existence because I felt I was nearing home as soon as we drive into this cheerful hamlet, some little ways above the Mandakini's confluence with the Alaknanda. A Prayag is a meeting of two rivers, and since there are many rivers in Garhwal, all linking up to join either the Ganga or the Yamuna, it follows there are numerous Prayags in themselves, places of pilgrimage as well as wayside halts en route to the shrines of Kedarnath and Badrinath. Nowhere else in the Himalayas are there so many temples, sacred streams, holy places, holy men. Truly, this is the kingdom of the gods. So much so that the mortal rulers of these mountain tracts have left little mark of their own in the history of the region. Every little place is steeped in religious mythology. It is as though the Pandavas bestrode these mountains only yesterday, and perhaps they did, if we consider the premise that it isn't time that's passing by, only you and I. Some little ways above Nandaprayag's Biri's Little Bazaar is a tourist rest house, perhaps the nicest of their rest houses in this area. It has a pretty garden surrounded by fruit trees and is some distance from the general hubbub of the main road. Above it is the old pilgrim road on which we walked, for let us remember that just over 20 years ago, if you were a pilgrim intent on finding salvation at Badrinath or Kedarnath, you went on foot all the way from Rishikesh, and in the process covered a few hundred miles in a couple of months. They had the time, they had the faith, they had the endurance. Illness and misadventure often dogged their footsteps, but there was a little suffering if at the end of it they arrived at the portals of heaven. Some did not survive to make the journey. Today's pilgrims may not be lacking in devotion, but most of them do expect to come home again. Along the old pilgrim trail, set among the mango trees in the fronds of papaya and banana, higher up the hill, the pine forest can be seen, but here it is almost subtropical. Nandaprayag is about 3,000 feet above sea level, at a height at which the vegetation is usually quite lush, provided there is protection to the wind, as there is here. In one of these double-storied houses lives Mr. Devki Nandan Vaishnav, scholar and recluse. He welcomes me into his home and plies me with food till I am close to bursting. He has a great love for his little corner of Garhwal and proudly shows me a collection of clippings concerning Nandaprayag. None of them is from a book. One of them is from a book by Sister Nivedita, the English Margaret Noble, who embraced Hinduism. Writing in 1928, she had this to say: Nandaprayag is a place that ought to be famous for its beauty and order. For a mile or two before reaching it, we noticed the superior character of the agriculture and even some careful gardening of fruits and vegetables. The peasantry also suddenly grew handsome, not unlike the Kashmiris. The town itself, new, rebuilt since the Gona flood, and its temple stands far out across the fields of the shore of Nandaprayag. But in this short time, a wonderful energy has been at work, and the place is full of gem-like beauties. It has a temple dedicated to Nagshila. Little has changed since Sister Nivedita's time, and there is a small Pathan population in Andhra Prayaga. In fact, when I called on Mr. Vaishnav, he was sending Eid greetings to his Muslim friends. Some of the old graves have disappeared in debris from the new cuttings. And as for the beautiful temple described by Sister Nivedita, I was sad to learn that it had been swept away by a mighty flood in 1970 when a cloudburst and landslide at Belakuchi on the Alaknanda resulted in great destruction. Mr. Vaishnav remembers the time when he walked to Pori to join the old Mesmo Mission School, where so many famous sons of Garhwal received their early education. It took him 4 days to get there. Now it is just 4 hours by bus. It was only after the Chinese invasion of 1962 that there was a rush of road building in the hills, districts of northern India. Before that, everyone walked and thought nothing of it. Sitting alone, that same evening in the little garden of the rest house, I heard innumerable birds break out in song. I do not see any of them because the trees are dark and the light is fading. But there is the rather melancholy call of the hill dove, the insistent ascending trill of the koel, and the much shrieking, whistling and twittering that I am unable to assign to any particular species. Ah, if only Salim Ali were here with me. And once again, while I sit on the lawn surrounded by the zinnias, I am assailed by that feeling of having been here before. Here on this lush hillside, among the pomegranates and oleanders, is it some childhood memory asserting itself? But as a child, I came no further than Rishikesh. Then Prague has some affinity with parts of the Doon Valley before the Doon was submerged by a tidal wave of humanity. But in the Doon, there is no great river running past your garden, and here there are two, and they are also part of that feeling of belonging. So perhaps it's some previous existence. I did perhaps come this way as a pilgrim, or some sort of flower lover, or perhaps I lived and belonged here, which accounts for the familiarity. Who knows? And anyway, mysteries are more interesting than certainties. Presently, the room boy joins me for a chat on the lawn. He is, in fact, running the rest house in the absence of the manager. A coach full of pilgrims is due at any moment, but until they arrive, the place is empty and only the birds can be heard. His name is Janakpal, and he tells me something about his village on the next mountain, where a leopard has been carrying away goats and cattle. He doesn't think much of the laws protecting leopards. Nothing can be done about it unless the leopard becomes a man-eater. A shower of rain descends on us, and so do the pilgrims. Janakpal leaves me to attend to his duties, but I am not left alone for long. A youngster with a cup of tea appears. He wants me to take him to Mussoorie or Delhi. He is fed up, he says, with washing dishes in the Prayaga. You are better off, I tell him. In Mussoorie, you will have twice as many dishes to wash than in Delhi, 10 times as many. But there are cinemas and videos there. He says, and I am left without an argument. The rain stops and I go for a walk. The pilgrims keep to themselves, but the locals are always ready to talk. So I'm not alone for long. I remember a saying, it may have originated in Garhwal, which goes, all men are my friends. I have only to meet them. In the hills, where life still moves at a leisurely pace and civilized pace, one is constantly meeting them. The Mussoorie cinemas have all closed. Janakpal moved to Delhi, but found the ticket prices were beyond his reach. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much.